you need help surviving in Dead by Daylight Mobile? In this video, I'm spilling all the secrets to become a God tier survivor so that you can carry your team to victory. Be sure to watch all the way to the end to learn my best tips and tricks on how to loop and more. What's up guys, my name is Bryce and welcome back to another Dead by Daylight mobile tutorial. Whether you want to learn how to become the best survivor in the game or if you just need some help with not dying, this video will give you everything you need to improve your gameplay. But before we start, I do want to say a quick thank you to Dead by Daylight Mobile for actually sponsoring this video, so make sure you guys get the love for them in the comments, and if you guys want to download the game for free, be sure to use the link in the description down below. Now, when it comes to Dead by Daylight Mobile, not dying can be tough, but here are 15 tips and tricks to help you instantly improve as a survivor. Tip number 1, don't be afraid to run. While Dead by Daylight Mobile is a horror game, and it can be tempting for new players to spend the entire game hiding from the killer, when it comes down to it, DBD is actually a race between the killer and survivors. When the killer isn't around, running can save a ton of time when moving between generators and saves, and will make a huge difference for the survivors. Be sure to look around to see where the killer is, and keep an eye on the HUD to see when it's safe to run. For example, if you see a killer in a chase or notice that they've just injured a survivor on the HUD, you're free to safely run to rescue another survivor or find a generator as they're already busy chasing someone else. Tip number 2, do generators. As a survivor, unless you're saving someone or actively in a chase, you should be repairing a generator at all times. Completing generators is vital to your escape, and too often, teams can get distracted and forget this basic tip. Just like with running, if you know someone else is being chased, that is the perfect chance to finish a tough gen. And remember, if you don't do generators, you can't escape. So get to repairing. But seriously, please repair gens. Tip number 3, split up. While it can be tempting to do a generator with friends, more is not always better. Doing a generator solo takes around 90 seconds, and while you might expect it to go twice as quickly with 2 survivors, it actually only goes 70% faster, and that amount of improvement actually decreases with each additional survivor. With 3 survivors, it's only barely twice as fast as 1 person working alone. Doing separate generators allows survivors to do more gens in less time, and allows 3 survivors to continue working on a generator even if 1 gets found by the killer. Teaming up on generators can also lead to the killer finding multiple survivors at once, leading to fewer survivors who are actually actively working on a gen. And while this is a great rule of thumb, there are actually a few notable exceptions to this. These include generators in the middle of the map, dangerous generators by the basement, and of course, the final generator. All of these need to be done as quickly as possible, so it's worth teaming up in that scenario. Tip number 4, avoid the 3 gen. As a survivor, it can be tempting to do the very first gens you see, but you gotta be careful to avoid a situation known as the 3 gen. A 3 gen occurs when the final 3 generators on a map are right next to each other, allowing the killer to easily guard all 3 while taking down survivors. To avoid this, be sure to spread out the generators that you repair throughout the match. A great tip is to prioritize the middle generators first and to finish at least 1 generator on each side of the map. By doing this, you increase the distance between generators and can avoid a pesky 3 gen. Tip number 5, use the in-game chat. In the top right of DBD Mobile, there's actually a chat button that you can use to communicate with your friends in-game. By using this, you can give your teammates incredibly helpful information about the killer's position and allow them to know when to do gens, when to save their teammates, and when to be on the lookout for the killer. By taking half a second to use a quick chat message, you can make sure that everyone makes the most of their time. Tip number 6, look behind you. The number 1 question I get from new survivors is how I managed to loop the killer so well. And while it would probably take me an entire video to explain everything you need to know about looping, the single best advice I can give you is to learn to look behind you during a chase. By keeping an eye on the killer at all times, you can extend loops dramatically and avoid the killer's mind games. While this will definitely take some practice to perfect, in DBD Mobile, there's actually a button that you can use to quickly look behind you to help you master it quickly. This really is the best survivor tip for anyone who struggles with chases. And that said, if you guys would like me to do an entire video where I explain how to loop like a DBD god, be sure to leave a comment down below that includes the word loop. Tip number 7, don't waste pallets. As a survivor, pallets are your best friend when it comes to avoiding the killer. And as there are only a limited number of pallets per map, you need to make sure that you use them at the right time. Beginner survivors often throw pallets as soon as they get to them, but by looping killers around objects and looking behind you, you can often waste 20 seconds or more of the killer's time per pallet before you actually need to throw them. In DBD Mobile, there are 3 types of pallets: safe, unsafe, and the shack, or as some people call it, the God pallet. Each of these can be used to avoid the killer, but some are better than others. Safe pallets are pallets that a killer needs to break in order to catch a survivor. If the killer doesn't break the pallet, you can just run these loops infinitely. An unsafe pallet is pretty much the opposite. Once used, you need to leave them ASAP, or a killer can trap you for an easy mind game hit. An easy way to tell the difference between the two is by looking at the size of the adjoining walls, with short walls tending to be unsafe and longer walls tending to be safer. And last up, we have the shack or God pallet. These super safe pallets are the best in the game and should only be used when absolutely necessary, so definitely be sure not to waste these, especially when the basement is also in the shack. Another great way to avoid wasting pallets is by not throwing them after being hit. Doing so will only waste the speed boost that you got from your injury, and it'll also cost you a pallet that could have better been used later. By learning to save pallets like this, you'll be a pro at looping in no time. Tip number 8. Know your vaults. While pallets are your best friend as a survivor, vaults are still invaluable when it comes to avoiding the killer. These windows can be used up to 3 times in a row before the entity blocks them for 30 seconds and, if properly used, can absolutely drive killers insane. But that said, not all vaults are created equally. There are 3 types of vaults in Dead by Daylight Mobile: fast, medium, and slow. A slow vault is a silent vault that you can do while walking or crouching. These make no noise and can be used to cross windows without alerting the killer. A fast vault is a vault that you do by running at a window straight on, and a medium vault is what happens if you're running at a window but you're coming from a little bit of an angle. When it comes to chases, you want to avoid medium vaults at all costs, as they are almost twice as slow as a fast vault and can lead to you getting hit more easily. Keep in mind that not every window allows you to fast vault, so if you find yourself in a loop where you can't fast vault both sides, try your best to change the direction of the loop so that you can get the most out of your vaults. Tip number 9. Help your teammates. As DBD Mobile is a team game, you need to work together with your teammates in order to succeed. This can be done in a lot of different ways. Some of the most important things to do include saving your friends from the hook so that they don't die, taking hits for injured friends so they aren't down, and even body blocking the killers to allow your friends to wiggle free and help your friends escape bad situations. Anything you can do to aid your friend's survival can and will make a huge difference in your games. Remember that the more survivors you keep alive, the more likely you are to escape. Tip number 10. Get hooked. You heard that right. In DBD Mobile, sometimes the best thing you can do for your team is getting hooked by the killer. While obviously you shouldn't make this a priority, knowing how and when to get hooked can really make a difference. For example, if you have a friend who is on death hook and you still haven't been hooked at all, try to keep your friends alive by forcing the killer to chase and potentially hook you instead. This can be particularly useful when killers are camping hooks, as you can often trade hooks with your teammates to keep your friends alive longer. Tip number 11. Know when to unhook. A great way to improve as a survivor is learning when to unhook your teammates. New players usually fall into 2 different categories: ones that instantly save survivors and ones that never save at all. And following this tip would tremendously improve the rounds for both them and their teammates. Too often I see new survivors accidentally kill their friends by unhooking them right in the killer's face, only to be surprised then when that killer immediately downs them again. And obviously by now you also know that not saving survivors is a pretty terrible idea too. You should know that each phase on a hook takes 60 seconds before progressing to the next stage. So don't be afraid to allow your teammates to hang out for a bit before you actually come save them. By waiting, you can make progress on a generator and allow the killer to move further away from the hook before you rescue your friend. Tip number 12. Don't save in front of the killer. Most killers don't camp, but if they do, try to avoid saving directly in front of them, as the killer can usually down both you and the person that you're saving. This mistake can lead to 2 survivors being hooked instead of just 1, and will often cost survivors the game. A major exception to this rule is when you save using the perk Borrowed Time. This allows the person you save to avoid damage from killers right after being unhooked and can be used to counter even the campiest of killers. You may still get hooked in this scenario, but at least you bought your friends some extra time. Tip number 13. Recover. If you've been down by the killer and they've decided not to hook you, be sure to recover so that your friends can save you as quickly as possible. Unless you're using a specific perk for this situation, you can't completely recover from the down state on your own. But that said, your recover progress will be added to the heal progress if a teammate comes for you. This can be the difference between a quick save and the death of both you and your would-be savior. Tip number 14. Play killer. While obviously this is a survivor guide, the best thing you can do to improve your gameplay as a survivor is just playing rounds as a killer. This will show you what killers see and do firsthand, allowing you to know how to counter it as a survivor. It can also be used to see what moves do and do not work against killers, while giving you a moment to get revenge on that pesky Dwight who hid in a locker instead of saving you. When it comes down to it, knowing how to be a good killer will make you an even better survivor. Tip number 15, don't be toxic. The final and perhaps most important tip is just don't be toxic. Remember that everyone playing the game is just trying to have a good time, so don't be a jerk. Don't teabag new killers, don't be rude in the in-game chat, and just remember to have fun. Or else. And there you go. Just like that, you now have all of my best beginner tips and tricks for Dead by Daylight Mobile. While there's still a lot more to learn, you should now know the basics of becoming a God tier survivor. If this tutorial helped you, make sure you leave a like and be sure to subscribe and smash that bell as I play Dead by Daylight Mobile with subscribers during my live streams. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like me to talk about in the next tutorial, be sure to let me know in the comments and maybe I'll answer them in the next video. Thanks again to Dead by Daylight Mobile for sponsoring this video, and I can't wait to see you guys in the fog.